Good morning, everyone. Today is Memorial Day, the day we remember all the fallen soldiers who fought for our country bravely and valiantly to defend us, to defend our freedoms, and paid the ultimate price of sacrificing their very lives. Now, it's interesting that this week's Torah portion is Bamidbar, which literally means in the desert. However, it begins with the census, the counting of the Jewish people. And indeed, there is another name for this book of the Torah, which is Sefer HaPikudim, the book of counting. But the word Pikud in Hebrew has a dual meaning that actually goes hand in hand. On the one hand, Pikud means to count. Sefer HaPikudim, the book of counting. On the other hand, Pikud means lifkod, to remember. And indeed, when you count people, you're remembering them. You're saying, I know you are here and you are being counted and remembered, and therefore the word pikud or pikudim means to count and to remember. However, in Hebrew we have another word for remembrance, and that is zachor, remember, zechira. And it's interesting that the word zechira means remembrance, but the word pikud means remembrance, and the question is, what is the difference? And I think there's a very important lesson here on Memorial Day, a day that we remember our fallen soldiers. You see, Zechira in the Torah is used hundreds of times, but it means to remember something in the past. Like remember the Exodus from Egypt, remember the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai, remember how Amalek tried to destroy you. It's something that we're remembering from the past. The word pikud means to remember, but the word pikud also means to remember with a charge, with a purpose, with a mission going forward. Zechira is the past, Pikud is the future. And that's why in Israel, when the general or the sergeant does a roll call, it's called a mifkad or Pikud, because the soldiers are being counted at roll call to know what their purpose and mission is. That's why when Sarah has a baby, it says, Vashem pakad et Sarah. God remembered Sarah, meaning to say that he counted her for a mission, for a purpose, to give birth to Isaac, the progenitor of the Jewish nation. And the same thing when the Jews are being counted here in the desert, it's not just to remember that they how many there are, because God never forgets. It's to say you are being counted for a purpose as a nation to journey to the land of Israel. And this is the message on Memorial Day. On the one hand, it's a day of memorial, remembering the past, zechira. On the other hand, it's a day of pikud. The remembrance of the sacrifice of the soldiers puts an onus, a responsibility, an obligation on us to be counted for a mission to the future, to carry on their legacy. And in a day and age where our country has so many internal problems, so much violence, so much animosity, so much discord amongst ourselves, we have to remember that they went overseas to fight for us. We don't have to go overseas, but we have to be willing to fight for the freedoms and the strength of our country by internally standing up and saying, what is my mission? What is my pikidah? What is my purpose as an American, as a human being, as a Jew in this country, to carry on what they died for? Friday night, we had a Shabbat Memorial Day weekend dinner at Shul. We had two speakers. One was Congressman Brian Mass, and one was a 98-year-old veteran from World War II whose name was Franklin Simon. And they both told stories of Pikud, to be remembered and counted. Brian Mass was serving in the U.S. Army during the Iraq War when a bomb detonated and he lost both his legs and a finger. When he comes in to speak, he wears prosthetic legs. When he speaks, you see his missing finger. And after he recovered, he decided to continue to serve his country as a U.S. congressman. But here's the amazing thing. He is the only member of Congress who served in the U.S. Army and in the IDF. And he told the story how that happened. He said he was studying in Harvard after his injuries, and he was in a park with his wife and his kids. And he had his prosthetic legs and his army hat. And there was a rally, a pro-Palestinian rally going through a park in Boston where he was studying. And they saw a U.S. veteran, Brian Mass. They started to heckle him and shout at him because they see Israel and America as allies, the big Satan and the small Satan. And he came home and he said to his wife, after what I experienced, the way these pro-Palestinian demonstrators, were slurring and cursing me as an American, I have to do something to show my support for America. And he said it wasn't enough for him to just merely, speak up. He wanted to act. And so he went to Israel, put on a uniform of the IDF, and volunteered in the IDF to show his support for Israel. In other words, he said, I have to be counted for a purpose, for a mission. And then we had this amazing fellow by the name of Franklin Simon, a 98-year-old veteran. He describes at the age of 17, he enlisted and then went overseas, and he landed on Normandy on D-Day. And he liberated the camps. He went into Buchenwald. He talked about the Jewish inmates, the Jewish survivors of the bodies were piled up, he said, but those who were alive, when they saw a Jew, they were hugging him. They didn't want to let go of him. They couldn't believe a Jew came to rescue them. But he said that one day they were fighting in the trenches, in the muddy, trenches, hiding, shooting, killing. And suddenly he hears the general screaming, Bistayid, Bistayid, which in Yiddish means, are you a Jew? Are you a Jew? And then he said, Simon, the Bistayid, you're a Jew. And he said, we're gathering Jews. He had no idea what it was. He didn't even know what day it was. They put everyone on a truck and they took them to the beachfront. And there was a rabbi, a chaplain waiting. It was Rosh Hashanah. They gave them new clothing, prayer books. And they said, it's the high holidays. We've gathered all the Jews to pray. And he said they gave them a beautiful Rosh Hashanah meal and then sent them back to the trenches. And that's what it means to be counted as an American and as a Jew. And so as we begin the book of remembrance, Pikudim, but also to be counted, let us make sure their sacrifice was not in vain, but we are counted for the future as they are remembered in the past. Have a meaningful Memorial Day.